In this podcast, I will pontificate on how playing wargames solitaire has its advantages and drawbacks, a few tips on how to modify your action deck in Warfighter. I will also discuss the new acquisitions I have made, the videos I have produced and scheduled for the YouTube channel, what future projects I'm tackling, and the coming attractions for April 2025, all on Speak Out and Play. Hello and welcome to the March 2025 episode of Speak Out and Play podcast. When I recorded this episode for February, we were experiencing several inches of snow and sub-zero temperatures. That's sub-zero Fahrenheit temperatures. Today it is different, and thank goodness. Spring leads to warmth, sunshine, ticks, grass that won't stop growing, tornadoes, and so on. So with that in mind, I'm going to stay inside and talk about the main subject of today's podcast. Change is the only constant in the universe. I'm not sure who said it originally, but I know Mr. Spock said it in a Star Trek movie, so I know that it must be true. I've been fortunate enough to play a wide variety of games over the time. I began as a teenager playing war games, and that morphed into playing more hobby, board, and card games with my friends in college, to pick up Magic the Gathering and play that for a dozen years or so until I fell back into wargaming. For the past 6 years, as of this April, I have created hundreds of videos for my Seek Out and Play YouTube channel. I have a long background in video production, so it was natural for me to start this as part of my hobby. And as you might suspect, I really enjoy the Warfighter system. And I have really enjoyed some other traditional war games as well, if you can call upfront traditional, along with solitaire games such as Raid on St. Nazaire, the DVG Valiant Defense series, and the like. In recent years, I found myself searching for and playing games solitaire to a degree far greater than any other time in my life, save for the first time I started playing as a teenager. That's not the best reminder of my teenage years for sure, but it's not the worst thing either. There are several advantages to playing games solitaire, or I should say to find games that are solitaire based. And the first is that I can play that game right away. I don't have to call up a friend. I don't have to travel to a game store or go online and hoping somebody is there and willing to play. I can just pull the game off the shelf, set it up, and go. And there's a wide variety of games that can be played solitaire as well, either by design or by their relative ease in playing both sides. When combined with different solitaire systems developed for such games, it reduces the feeling of not playing the same way when engaging in battles from different eras. You know what it's like. You play a solitaire game of the Napoleonic era, and then maybe you play one of modern conflict, and it feels the same. Well, it shouldn't be that way, and fortunately that there are different solitaire systems out there that kind of go with the different eras of wargaming, at least historical wargaming. I also believe that solitaire games have improved over the years with new systems that make them easier to learn for the most part. Having said that, I can think of a few back in the day that were pretty good as well, such as the aforementioned Raid on St. Nazaire by Avalon Hill. With all the praise, though, there are still some issues I have with solitaire games. The most obvious disadvantage for me is that there is no opponent. There is no one to outwit or outplay. This applies to bots, which are not opponents really, but a series of steps that you must follow in playing the other side. Since the words on the chart do not change, the actions of the bot becomes predictable. In other words, this becomes more like a puzzle than playing against somebody. And that includes random events such as rolling dice to decide the course of action for the other side. Oddly enough, this is rather predictable as well in a way, that my chances of victory ride more on events out of my control. A few bad rolls and even the best tactics that I employ cannot overcome the situation. But a few good rolls and my mistakes become inconsequential. And then there are some games that I play two-handed or both sides. While doing that, we'll have the game completed much faster than most bots that I've played against. It also means that I'm not really playing a side at all. I become more of an observer of what happens rather than an active participant on one side. Because being an active participant means not knowing what the other side is thinking, what they are planning. And playing two-handed takes that away from me. What I will say is that there are exceptions, and such as Warfighter, in which winning and losing is secondary to the story being created for the game. It is true that card drawing for hostiles is akin to rolling dice, where I might face a few or a lot of bad guys, which determines my fate, which means that my most insightful actions or stupidest mistakes are mitigated by the events outside my control. I could also list the old Avalon Hill game B-17, Queen of the Skies, and its descendants in games like Target for Today, in which you're not really a participant, you're just kind of along for the ride, which may make such games more accurate and realistic, considering how little anyone in such situations could do but hope and pray. But still, there is no replacement for an opponent, someone to challenge, someone to outwit, and to me, that is what the winning and losing aspects of the game should be about, at least when I play. So what's the solution? Well, obviously to find a live opponent or to create a really clever AI bot. Of course, the latter may lead to a Forbin project or Skynet scenario, and we'd all be in trouble, but maybe it'll be worth it, who knows? And that concludes this segment of Speak Out and Play, so let's switch gears and see what's happening in Warfighter Corner. You'll sometimes find me posting on the Warfighter Facebook page, answering questions from new players. One of the more frequently asked questions is whether you can mix expansions with a core set, especially when it comes to action cards. Should they go into the core set action deck? To make the answer clear, I will divide it into two parts. The first is intent. It is the intent of DVG to have certain types of expansions mixed into the core set and to keep others separate. Nation packs, for example, especially when they come in two packs, such as the US, UK, German, Japan, and so forth, are designed to be used with all missions that feature that nation. This also includes airborne and shore invasion packs, along with more generic ones, such as gear and fortifications. Battle packs are meant to be kept together and not mixed in with the core set or other expansions. When I say kept together, I mean primarily the missions, objectives, locations, and any cards that are specific to the expansion itself. This may include specific weapons, soldiers, or gear that were only present in the battle or set of battles that are the focus of the battle pack. The Maquis, for example, are somewhat of a hybrid nation and battle pack, but the intention of DVG is to keep it all together so you can play out the missions as the Maquis. So, with battle packs, keep them together. However, you can always add in soldiers from the same nation if you desire. So if you're playing something like Makra, for example, and you want to add in a few Polish soldiers from the Polish expansion packs, well, go right ahead. I highly recommend for all those who are new to Warfighter that you just play the core set missions first and do not add any cards from the expansions until you feel comfortable with how the game works. Once you feel comfortable, then start adding in the expansions if you desire. And some expansion packs include new action cards for the deck. You can add them as well, but you do not have to add all or any of them either. Now, I recommend a ratio of 6 action cards for every location card so that you have a reasonable chance of drawing new locations. I also recommend that you keep the total number of cards in the action deck to the same as the original core set. Otherwise, you might find yourself having to shuffle a huge pile of cards, and who wants to do that? Anyway, having said that, you may find that creating an action deck with a 6-to-1 ratio for locations, or 7-to-1, if you want to be a little bit more daring, means having a few more or less cards in the total original core deck. You know, that's okay. The DVG police are not going to show up at your door and arrest you for having 3 or 4 more or fewer cards. Now, the second part of the answer is that you can do whatever you want with the packs. Unlike Magic the Gathering, which has unified rules about what cards can and cannot be used in their tournaments, settings, and so forth, Warfighter has no such tournament scene. That means that whatever you want to do is whatever you want to do. There are no right and wrong methods of playing missions, objectives, locations, and other cards. Now, what happens when you have mixed up your cards, expansions into the core set cards, thoroughly, and you want to separate them again by putting them back in the packs? The answer is easy, depending on how well you can read small numbers. You may need reading glasses, like I have, or maybe a magnifying glass or a microscope, depending on your eyesight. But all the cards in Warfighter are identified by a 2-number system. You can find the numbers on the lower left corner of the card as it is facing you. The first set of numbers or letters identifies the core set or expansion pack the card came from, and the second is the ID number of the card itself. So, for example, the Lighten the Load event card has its ID numbers WP-261. This identifies the card as belonging to the Warfighter Pacific core set, and the card number is 261. Another is a Japanese player soldier, Furiyama, whose ID number is 66-1. This identifies the card as being part of the pack expansion number 66, the second Guadalcanal expansion pack. If you want to keep your packs separate, which I do because I create videos on them and I want to know which card belongs to which, then the ID numbers can be most helpful. For the Seek Out and Play channel, I have already produced and scheduled 9 Warfighter expansion videos that will start coming out in April and run through the end of the year. Each episode will be presented on the second Wednesday of each month, also known as Warfighter Wednesday. This will mean that you will see at least 2 Warfighter videos presented every month for the foreseeable future. Warfighter Vietnam will also get 2 new videos as well, one that covers the expansion rules for the core set, and the second that explains the campaign rules. The latter will be part of Campaign Month, which currently is scheduled for December. I've also obtained all the Warfighter Chittor expansions, all 3 of them so far, along with the 2 campaign games. The first expansion, Sholo, Arizona, has an unboxing video that will be featured before the end of the year on my channel. I've also received medals, which now completes my World War II expansions, well, at least until Battle Pack number 4 arrives sometime later this year. After that, it will depend on what new releases come from DVG. And that is what's in Warfighter Corner for the month of March. To find out what else is happening on the Seek Out and Play channel, let's check out what's in the works. The end of February and most of March have been a very busy 4 weeks for me in terms of shooting videos. In total, I have created 11 videos for the Seek Out and Play channel, which includes the number I have shot for Warfighter. In other words, 9 expansion pack unboxings, and then the 2 on Warfighter Vietnam. Outside of that, I've created another video for Upfront thanks to a suggestion from a subscriber to the channel. This will focus on the terrain cards found in the core sets and explain their parameters under the rules. The video is scheduled for release later this year. Now, it will not include the jungle or desert terrain cards as I've covered them in a previous video. I am always open to suggestions about what other aspect of Upfront you want me to cover. What I can say is that I've gone through the rules with just a few more videos that are coming out for this year. They've been completed and they are scheduled. This will include a compilation of all the rules, minus the terrain cards, so that you can view it all at once. But the playlist will remain, so you can select an individual video. And frankly, that's how I prefer to check out videos when it comes to rules anyway. I'm more comfortable finding a single short video on rules that I have questions over compared to a long video that covers all the rules, even if chapters are put in. However, I know that others feel differently about it, so I normally create a compilation video when I am done with all the major rules of the game, and that's what I've done again with Upfront, so that update will come out in time for Christmas. In addition, I am producing longer form videos for games that I mentioned last month, which include Dune, War for Arrakis, Undaunted, 2020 Callisto, and Kingmaker. Each video will include the components, setups, and how to play. Plus, I will produce 3 personal essay videos that cover larger topics. And last but not least will be my annual Attack of the Mutants radio program based on the actual play of the game. That will be my 6th, 7th, I don't know. I've lost track. But that's what's going to be shot over the next month or so. So shooting will begin in April. I'm clearing out my schedule to do some other things for the end of the month. So shooting will begin next month, and the goal will be to complete all the videos that I have mentioned by Memorial Day. As with the longer form videos for Dune, Undaunted Callisto, and Kingmaker, the personal essays will be longer as well, which means I'm giving myself plenty of time to shoot, as you can tell from the 2 months that I've set aside. And I'm sure that there will be changes between now and the time that my next podcast goes on the air, which will be at the end of April. Now, I'm sure all of you are dying to know what games I have picked up. Do I have anything new that's coming in? And yes, I have. I've picked up a couple more games that focus on the world of Dune, the classic 6-player version from Gale Force 9, which was originally published by Avalon Hill back in the 1970s, plus the new 4-player version from Gale Force 9, which streamlines the rules and allows fewer players to fight over the planet Arrakis. I know that both games do not have solo or solitaire rules, but I picked them in part because I do have the old Avalon Hill version. I've owned it for quite some time, but I've yet to find a real reason to make a video over it. Well, now I've got an excuse to do a series of videos on all three that will most likely start off with a comparison between all three games, a guide for new players and getting them set up and explaining the turn sequence, optional rules, and so forth. As far as any additional games for the channel, Guadalcanal from DVG should be out sometime this summer, and so that'll get a featured place on Seek Out and Play. And I finally did it. I finally broke down and I purchased War of the Ring, a game that I have long considered purchasing. And I finally got my hands on it thanks to it being on discount and available, which is really nice. Videos on that game will probably wait until later this year. And who knows what I might purchase next, although it may be for some time unless I get a really good suggestion. And remember, your suggestions are always welcome and appreciated. And that's what's in the works. So what's coming up for the month of April on Seek Out and Play YouTube channel? Well, let's find out by going to the coming attractions for next month. In this, the first video for April 2025, Seek Out and Play presents the Dark Swan expansion for Black Swan from Vento Nuovo Games. The video starts with an unboxing and presentation of components, followed by an explanation of the new rules and new German-Italian units for the game. Black Swan is a strategic-level game set in the European, Mediterranean, and Russian theaters of World War II. The Dark Swan expansion allows you to add forces to the game to augment your campaigns. The second Wednesday in April 2025 is Warfighter Wednesday, with 2 videos presented on the Seek Out and Play YouTube channel. The first is another entry into the Warfighter 29 series, Russia. The video contains 2 teams created with just 29 resource points each. You can use the teams to play in smaller scenarios with a 29 resource point limit, or combine them for larger missions with a higher resource point value. The second is an unboxing of Warfighter World War II expansion number 84, Raid on St. Nazaire. In the video, you will see the different soldiers, weapons, skill, sitrep cards, missions, objectives, locations, and German hostiles. Each month will bring a new unboxing video for expansions in the Warfighter series. For the third Wednesday in April 2025, Seek Out and Play presents 4 examples from the Blitz in the East rulebook by Vento Nuovo Games. Examples include ground movement, attrition, advance after combat, and blitz. The video is designed to help those new to the game to understand the basic concepts of Blitz in the East. The fourth Wednesday in April 2025 brings a continuation of the Gunslinger series, optional rule number 5. In this video, you will learn the optional rules for including smoke, line of fire, shade, squeaky boards, darkness, and more that are covered under optional rule number 5 in Gunslinger. Gunslinger is an out-of-print game by Avalon Hill covering the shootouts, bar brawls, and violent encounters of the Old West in a man-to-man tactical setting. Check out more videos when you subscribe to the Seek Out and Play YouTube channel. In addition, there is a monthly Speak Out and Play podcast, which you can find on Buzzsprout and Spotify. For just $2 per month, you can support the channel by becoming a Patreon member and see the videos and podcast 48 to 72 hours in advance. At least one new video is released every week on the Seek Out and Play YouTube channel, so I will see you next Wednesday. And that is it for this edition of Speak Out and Play podcast. Thank you for listening. The audio version for next month's podcast is scheduled to be released on April 28th, with the video version coming out on the 30th. Patreon members can listen to the audio version on Friday the 25th and see the video version on Monday the 28th. At least one new video is released every week on the Seek Out and Play YouTube channel, so I will see you next Wednesday. And if you see Sally, bring her all the way home.